Okay, the goal is to try to finish the first chapter today, and we'll take it from there. So basically, we ended last class talking about how God put us in this world, and it's a world with a lot of challenges, difficulties, whether you're rich or you're poor, healthy or sick, you are in a constant battle to make the right choices. Like Shlomo Melech said, if God, please don't make me too rich because I'll say I don't need you, and don't make me too poor because I'll end up stealing because I'll be in situations that I'll justify. So life is a constant challenge, and the question was, I don't want it. Why do I need the challenge? Right? A person can say, I'm not interested in the challenge. Just leave me alone. Don't put me in this world. So the first thing is, we spoke about this in the introduction. God didn't ask you whether you want to come into this world or not. He sent you into this world, and you have a job to do here. But that's not very comforting. To be told. We said there was a discussion 2.5 years in the Beit Midrash of Hillel and Shammai, whether Noach lo Adam shenivra or Noach shelo nivra. You were better off being born or better off not being born. 2.5 years. Obviously, it was a very deep discussion. It was not just 2.5 years of discussion. And at the end, they said you're better off not being born because it's difficult and it's challenging. But now that you're born, don't ask the question whether you should be or shouldn't. You're here, right? Like someone told me, the summary of the book of Eov is, don't ask why is God doing this to me. Ask, what can I do with what God is giving me? Don't ask the question why. That's not our place to go in to try to understand these things. But what is our job? What is our task? What is our mission? So the next piece, the Ramchal tells us that it's not just that I'm in this world, what am I going to do? It's actually a wonderful opportunity and a great gift that we're in this world. So we are in the first chapter. It's called Be'ur Klal Chovat Adam Be'olamo. And we are in the passage that says, Im Ta'amik od ba'inyan tireh. Pass me your book so I can tell you where it is. Im Ta'amik od ba'inyan tireh. So now we're going to go in depth, and I want to remind you that
the page 9.
Page 9.
At the bottom.
Thank you. Exactly. Page 9 at the bottom. This is in the Messilat Yesharim Feldheim printing. So we have to remember what we're doing, first of all, in this first chapter. In the first chapter, we come to learn to understand the idea of Olam Haba. The Ramchal says, you cannot develop your character, you cannot, which is Musa, which is Avodat Hashem, which is what we're learning in this book, is your relationship with God and your relationship with your personality, and you're developing your character. You can't take any steps if you don't have a certain concept that is very deeply understood. The concept of Olam Haba. Olam Haba is not a place, it's a state of being. It's an understanding that there's a body and there's a soul. There's a body, the soul of the next world. The soul of this world is the next world. Same way you have a body, you have a soul. It's something that it's real. You can't understand it with your physical senses, but it's more valuable, it's more eternal, it's more real than anything you can grasp in your physical senses. And until you internalize this message, you can't take the next steps of Messilat Yesharim, of personal growth. That message has to be, that understanding of what we call the code word for Olam Haba. It's also a place. It's also Haba, the place the world is going to become. Right? The world, Haba means that's coming. It's the next world, but it's also the world that's coming. It's coming. It's this world. In its highest form, that is, when it's complete, when it reaches completion. When there isn't the struggle and battle between the body and the soul. But first we have to understand this. And again, we mentioned In the Torah, Olam Haba is not mentioned at all. It says, Im b'kochotai telechu, if you go in my ways, what does it say? You'll have all of the conditions that you need to do your work. You'll have peace, you'll have wealth, you'll have all these things, but Olam Haba is not mentioned. Only 2,000 years ago in the Mishnah is when the concept of Olam Haba started being discussed. And that was because there was the Apicorus philosopher, Apicor, who came and said, all there is what you see. All there is the physical. And sometimes concepts that are very clear and obvious, as generations go on, these obvious things need to be taught and explained. Like, for example, till a few years ago, most people, it was obvious that a man marries a woman. And now, it's like people are confused, right? So, and then there'll be a book that will explain that a man has to marry a woman. And people will say, what? What do you have to teach such a obvious thing? A man marries a woman, has children. That's the way the world works. So, the same thing with Olam Haba. Olam Haba was something that was obvious. It was something that did not need to be discussed, did not need to be written down. The same way I don't have to convince somebody not to commit suicide. A book on why not to commit suicide. Right? Who would read a book like that? Everyone knows that they want to live. It's the most basic desire that a person wants to live, and he's willing to do anything to live. Right? A person, that's people pay money and medical treatments and everything just that they can live. So, same thing with Olam Haba. After the second temple, the time of the second temple, it needed to become clarified. And then suddenly, Kol Yisrael Yeshel Chelek Olam Haba, and Al Tiyeh Ke'eved Shemesh Et Harav V'Mekabel Pras, all these things, Olam Haba became something very, very discussed. So the Ramchal says, our main goal as Judaism, and we see in many other religions, they're always talking about Olam Haba, the next world, the next world. Judaism, our goal is not the next world. Our goal is to lift up this world. That's why there's a prohibition. Lo tidrashu el hametim. You're not allowed to talk to dead people. You're not allowed to, the religious, you could say, spiritual leaders of the past were very involved in death, and had to do with like blood and talking, all these things that had to do with death. And we, our Kohanim, are not allowed to go anywhere near a graveyard, anywhere near a person who dies, right? Because our whole idea of our spiritual people are connecting us to life and to be alive and to help this world succeed. But nevertheless, like we said, our goal is to lift up this world. But if you are sunk into this world, you can't lift anything up. If you are sunk into the world, into the materialism, then you're not able to lift this world. So the first chapter of the Messilat Yesharim is to lift yourself, to understand the concept of Olam Haba, to become more connected to Olam Haba, to lift yourself up a little bit from this world, talk about the next world, and then you can lift up this world, in order to lift up this world. So after we mentioned this world being the world of challenges and difficulties, as we said, a person may be discouraged and say, I don't know if I want to be here. Relax, listen to what the Ramchal is saying. If you go in depth into this concept of a human being in this world, no, don't say to yourself, I don't want to be in this world. The world was created to serve you. But there's how do you say, read the fine print. Omnam, huomed b'shikul gadol. You have a great calculation to make. You have to weigh it. Ki im ha'adam nishach achar olam umitrachek miboro. If you look at this world, if you make the pleasures of this world become the goal, like we said, there's no problem in having pleasures. Sleeping, eating, all these things are important and wonderful, as long as they don't become the goal. If they become a means for a goal, then it's great. But if it becomes the goal, then it's destruction. Im Adam Nimshach Haolam, you're just pulled after all the worldly things, and you destroy yourself. If a person eats without stopping, or any physical any of the pleasures, if you do without borders, without limits, then you destroy yourself and you destroy the world. A human being is the crown of creation. As the crown of creation, you give meaning, you give purpose to everything. The whole world is waiting for purpose, waiting for meaning. Give me meaning, give me purpose. Right? Like we said, you take a Barati Torah Tavlin. The Torah, you take the food and you put on some of the, what makes the food so great is you put on the spices. A great cook, a great chef is someone who has that skill of knowing how much sweet, sour, hot, all this ability, and that's why God created the Torah. Take the Torah and make this world the most tasty, most wonderful place through using it. We're not saying detach. We're against the idea of self-infliction, but you have to use it for the purpose of uplifting yourself, making this world a dwelling place for Hashem. And this statement, Rav Kook said on every line in this book, you can write a book. Just this one line here is so powerful, and I think about it a lot. Is that just, if you think about this idea, here you are, you find yourself being drawn to something that you know you shouldn't be drawn to. If you could tell yourself this line, repeat it. If I keep going after this thing that's pulling me right now, I'll be destroying myself and I'll be destroying the whole world with me. If I now control myself, as you feel yourself going on autopilot to something that you know you don't want to be going. I am going now I am driving 100 miles an hour on a dead end street that, there's a wall at the end. If I keep going, I know I'm going to crash. And if you tell yourself, okay, here it is, and this is the choice that we have all the time. We are always given the choice of choose life or choose the wrong choice, and then you go down. Either choose life and move up, or make the wrong choice and go down. But even when you go down, there's always two choices. Choose to go further down, or choose life and go all the way up to the top. So there's always these choices. So when a person feels himself going towards that negative thing, he has to tell himself, okay, here I am, I have to make the calculation. If I let this desire, this world, this pull me, I'll destroy myself and I'll destroy the world. If I control myself, and I attach myself to God, and I use from this world to help me serve God, I will be uplifted, and I will uplift the whole entire world, and that is the purpose of creation. The Rambam says that whenever you have a mitzvah to do, or someone once came to Rav Kook and said, do you have any tricks, how I could be happy? And he said, yeah, just think about this idea. The whole world is tilted on a scale. This is based on the Rambam. And now your one mitzvah could tilt everything to positive. It's positive, negative, 50-50. Right? A tzaddik is somebody who has 50-50, good and bad. We're always struggling. But that one act that I'm going to do is going to lift me up and lift the whole world up. And that's what a person has to think about. And how powerful this message is, this statement that he said, to understand. It's such an upliftment for all of creations. When they get the opportunity to serve the refined person, the holy person. And that's what we learn about. This is what we learned, the rabbis taught us. It says, when God created the world, he saw there was this unbelievable light. And the light was supposed to be for anybody to use. and then God hid the light. What does that mean, God hid the light? It means that God turned off the light. This world, for many people, can be a very dark world if you don't turn on the light. And that's what it means, that God created the world, created this beautiful light, and then He shut off the light. And our job is to turn on the light. In Hebrew, you say lishpoch or, to explain something, to understand something. It means to put light on it, to shine light on this.
Shed light on the matter.
To shed light on the matter. Oh, it's also an English phrase. To shed light on the matter. That's what it means to explain something, to make it clear, right? It's the things that are not clear. Now they become clear. Everything is understood. And that is the purpose of creation. It says, by the way, we know that in the Torah, it says that God created Vayi'or. God created light on the first day. But then it says on the fourth day, it says HaMe'orot, that there was these two lights. Why? And this is a great idea. It says Ner Hashem. This is the Dvar Torah I said at my daughter's bat mitzvah. Her birthday was on Bereshit. So it says Ner Hashem nishmat adam chofes kol chadrei beten. The candle of God is the soul of man that illuminates light in the dark places. So let's explain it. God created the whole world full of light. Then He put only 2 light bulbs. What happens when you had light everywhere, and now you put only 2 light bulbs? Under the table it's dark. But God wants there to be light everywhere because that was His original plan. So what does He do? Ner Hashem, the candle of God, is the soul of man. He puts you under the table, and your job is to light yourself up, be lit up, right? The first character we're going to work on is called Zehirut. Zohar is something that shines. How do I shine? We'll explain that. But that's the idea, is that God hid the light, and now our job is to bring the light to all the dark places everywhere. If everybody will shine, the light will be everywhere the way God planned, through us being partners with God and bringing light everywhere. So that's what it means that God hid the light. And how do we see this idea? Let's move on to this idea of the stones that Yaakov Avinu took to put on his head when he was running away from his brother, and he was going into a very difficult situation, and he wanted to sleep, and he needed some protection from the animals. And it says, "Vayikach me'avnei hamakom vayaseh merashotav." Okay, so it says he took from the stones that were around, and he made it like a pillow, or like a wall, and he went to sleep. But then when he has the dream of the angels going up and down, it says that, right? He wakes up and he says, "Vayikach et ha'even asher sam merashotav." He took the stone in singular before it was plural. Vayikach me'avnei hamakom. He took the many stones. But then it says he woke up and he took the stone, thus the singular stone, as he made it, as anointed it for a place of God. So what happened? How did it move from plural to singular? The answer is, all the stones were fighting, were arguing. I want to be the stone that Yaakov will rest his head on. So what God did was, He took all of those stones and made them into one stone. And that's why it went from plural to singular. What does that teach us? It teaches us the job of us as human beings is to unite everything. That it teaches us that these stones that are the most inanimate objects, they're meaningless. They have no purpose. Or how do they get purpose? Through being connected to the tzaddik, through being connected to the person who is fulfilling his mission in serving God, and the purpose of him being created was to serve God. We take everything out of meaningless, and we give it meaning, we give it purpose. Now I'm a partner. I'm part of something great, the stone says, and all the creation. So understand, don't just say, oh, it's so difficult, whether I'm rich or poor, healthy or sick, I'm going to be in the challenge all the time. I don't want it. It's very nice you don't want it, but you have this incredible gift, this opportunity. Understand this honor that God gave you to lift up all of creation. And that's what we see about Yaakov. And we see that when God created Adam Arishon, it says in Kohelet, he took Adam and Chava around and said, Re'eh et Maseh Elohim. In the moment when God created Adam and Chava, Netalo ve'echziro al kol inei hagan, he took them for a walk around the garden and he said, see how beautiful everything is. Re'eh ma'asai kama na'im v'shubachim hen. See my creations, how beautiful they are. V'kol ma shebarati, everything I created, bishvilcha barati, for you I created. Yes, I want you to use and use all of the pleasures of this world. I want you to try everything that it says that a person will be punished for not trying the things that God created for you to try. I made it for you. Why didn't you try it? You know, God wants us to enjoy. He created the world in order to give. And therefore, ten datcha, be very careful. Shlo tekalkel, that you won't destroy yourself. And through destroying yourself, you will destroy my world. Because the world is waiting for purpose. The world is waiting for meaning. And this is very important. Okay? So now we're moving on to the next thing. Klalosh davar. So the Ramchal is the master of organized, systematic things. He gives us certain ideas and he wants to make sure, are you with me? Let's go over the big picture, because he sees that some people might be falling asleep in the class. So every once in a while he goes back to the let's talk about let's summarize everything we've said till now. Klalosh davar. Nobody take it personally, feel free. I heard a rabbi say once, you can sleep in my classes as long as it's the bus is driving, you'll get to your stop. So don't worry about it. It was funny on our rabbi in shul. He speaks very softly in a low voice, and and so on Sukkot he says, okay, everybody, I'm going to try to I'll try to do a fast Var Torah because you're not allowed to sleep out of the sukkah. And in 5 minutes, there was 5 guys that were asleep. Anyway, so klalosh davar. Let's sum it up. Ha'adam lo nivra ba'avur matzavo ba'olam hazeh. You were not created for the situation for you to just succeed in this world. Remember, for that, it would be enough to have a soul of an animal. We'll get there in a minute. Animals, they're created just for this world, and they do great. They eat, they sleep, and they whatever else they do. And they're very happy, and they don't have to go to a psychologist. They don't have how do you say, existential crisis of why am I in this world? They're very happy and they do their job, right? So let's sum it up. You're not created for the situation in this world, but for the situation in the next world. What does that mean? Is that, like we said, if you live just with this world, eating, sleeping, whatever else you need, your physical needs, you will feel that you're just not. It doesn't do it. You won't be happy. You'll feel maybe after it may take a few years, but after a few years you'll feel it doesn't do it. Indulge, go crazy, have whatever you want. And I know some very wealthy people. And at some stage, you realize, I had the fanciest car, I had the fanciest airplanes, I had the fanciest, big houses, cars, whatever you want, but all the physical things you could imagine, and you feel this emptiness. There's got to be something more. I belong to something else. And the values of the next world are what give purpose and meaning to the reality. Right? But you need this world. This is the pathway. There's no shortcuts. You want to get there, like we said, the book is called Messilat Yesharim. You have a track, and you have your train, and your train goes very fast, and it gets to the station. You get to the station. I did it. Look how fast I got here. And the person at the station says, "Sorry, we're not paying you." Why? Because you didn't bring the merchandise. The carts. There was all the carts you had to take on. It's not about just getting from one point to the other. It's about how you get there. It's about getting there in the right way. Doing the steps you have to take to get there the right way. And so how do we know this from? The rabbis taught us, many different teachings. that explain, but they're all in the same style. Kulam b'signon echad. Medamim et haolam hazeh. They explain this world. Lemakom uzman ha'achana. They explain this world is the place where you prepare. This is the world, the place where you when you get ready, and the next world is the place of rest and enjoying the fruits of your hard labor. Huma shamu, and this is what the rabbis taught us. We mentioned that in the beginning. Ha'olam hazeh domeh lepozdo, and here he gives a few different examples. Hayom lasotam umachar lekabel scharam. מי שטרח בערב שבת יאכל בשבת. העולם הזה דומה לים, והעולם ליבשה, והעולם לים, and many more. So he says, I'll give you a few examples of the correct understanding. What we're doing in this first chapter is looking at everything in a new proportion, a new perspective. If we thought that all there was in this world, now we're saying no. Same way you prepare all week, and especially on Friday, for Shabbos. Now you're working everything you're doing on Friday, you will not enjoy on Friday. You'll enjoy on Shabbos. So that is the outlook you have to have. You have to look at this world. This work is the weekdays. This world is Friday. In the same way you're investing now and preparing for something that you will enjoy in the future, that's the relationship of this world and the next world. Or another example, you have land. Here you have land. You're living on the land. But you're told that there's a cruise that you need to take. So what do you do on the land? You plow, you harvest, you grind, you prepare, you work. And then when you go onto that boat, that's it. You can no longer prepare. Right? It says, one moment of mitzvahs in this world is greater than the whole next world. And one moment of korat ruach, the pleasure and enjoyment you have in the next world, is way more than all the pleasures you ever could have in all of this world. It says in Pirkei Avot. In other words, so why do we say the largest growing disease in North America is depression? Because people have the wrong expectations of this world. When you're not aligned in your expectations are, I want to have pleasure. But that's not the place for it. The place for pleasure is the next world. And the real pleasure is closeness to God. And you can experience that highest level in the next world. So people walk around frustrated. I came to an amusement park and I'm not enjoying myself. I'm not enjoying the ride. I want my money back. So that's why people are depressed. But if your understanding and your outlook in life is this is the world of work and I'm looking to serve God, I'm looking to do the work, you'll be the happiest person because at every turn you go, you have an opportunity to do work. So basically they fooled you. The Western world, they told you that you're here to have pleasure, and it's not the case. Pleasure is not the goal, is the means. Pleasure is you have to have pleasure in order to do your work. But you weren't created just to have pleasure, physical pleasures. So when he says there's many more, I'll give you another example he says there's many more, so I'll give you another one. Imagine you live in New York and you decide you want to make Aliyah. So you get on the plane but you have a layover. And your layover is in France. And you get to France. And now you're in New York, you started learning Hebrew because you said, I'm going to Israel. So you're learning this language that doesn't help you there. But you're learning a new language that's going to help you in the place you're going. And people are saying, what are you doing? How does it help you? You can't make business. It's not going to help you in your business. It's not going to help you in anything learning Hebrew here. And you go to Israel. On the way to Israel, you stop at France and you get stuck there. And instead of continuing learning Hebrew, preparing for Israel, 20 years later, and these are stories that happen every day, 20 years later, you say, oh man, what happened to my plan? Or I met people, they said, I was going to Israel, but then I bought this couch. And to transfer a couch is already a complicated thing, so I'm stuck. Here I am. Because of my couch, I'm here 20 years in France. Right? So, but then you get on the boat, you come to Israel, you don't speak a word. The language of the next world is Torah u'mitzvot, Maasim Tovim, developing your character. That is the language. It may not help you in this world at all. There's no reward for the mitzvahs in this world at all. So, but why are you doing it? If you're going to put on tefillin and go daven, you're wasting time that you could be learning something that you could make a living out of. You'll be learning something that you could, that will help you succeed in this world. And now you're davening and you're taking away time from that? Yes. So it's because of this idea of Mish tochal be'el Shabbat, yochal b'Shabbat, that yes, you need to do things in this world. Like, or for example, a person's building a boat. There's no one ever heard of ocean, and you're living in the desert, and you're building a boat. And people are telling you, "Are you crazy? What are you doing? Go to yeshiva. You go to university. You go to learn how to make a trade or do something. Don't waste time learning Torah." They don't understand. People think that's why, unfortunately, people don't understand. You want to raise money for universities. I'm a fundraiser. You want to raise money for universities. People understand that. You want to raise money for yeshivas. Very difficult. Like someone said to someone, "What do you learn chazanis there? How many years do you need to learn chazanis?" Right? Like it's completely something that is like it's worthless because people don't understand it. That we're building the boat. We're building the boat because we're going to the ocean and we're going to the Olam Haba, and that's what it is. V'tireh. Now, the Ramchal gives us many different directions to understand these concepts of Olam Haba. Tireh bemet kvar lo yuchal shum ba'al sechel. Now let's talk practical. Lo yuchal shum ba'al sechel le'amin shtachlit b'rat adam u'letzavo olam hazeh. Anyone who really thinks, use your mind, you'll come to the conclusion, if you really put thought into it, that it can't be that I'm only created for this world. Because who is truly happy in this world? People live 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, but there's constant challenges. There's constant, you have the dentist and the doctor, and right, you have so many challenges and difficulties. Tsar, v'cholaim, things hurt, and things are annoying you, and it's too hot, or it's too cold, or it's too this, it's too that, right? Constant challenges and difficulties. And not only that, then you die? Come on, God, I went through so many difficulties. At least spare me from dying. Because, I went through all these other things. No. Not only, so here he's talking now, let's talk like common sense. It can't be that all there is this world because there's so many difficulties and challenges, and then after everything dies, and even if you made it to 100, wow, this guy, he made it to 100 years old, right? The one in a million. He made it to 100 years old, but he's already, he can't function. He can't see well, he can't talk well, he can't experience this world. He has, his difficulties of functioning, it becomes very difficult. And therefore, there's got to be something else. V'lo od, more than that. Right? In other words, the ability to build this world is limited. Life is short. And God gave us an incredible chesed. The chesed is that He showed us the ocean. He showed us signs, it's time to build your boat. The land is shaking, right? There's cracks. You realize it's happening. It's coming. I see it. Right? You lived 100 years. You don't function. You're not functioning. Even if you're healthy your whole life. At 100 years old, your life is not, your quality of life is not great. Right? And anyone who looks at this and really puts thought into it would say, that's why, unfortunately, all of these rich and famous, all these singers and they don't make it too far, because their thought of becoming old and sick and that they want to let's leave at the peak, right? That's not the way we see it. And you look at the world, you say it's not the place for me, because we belong to the ocean. We belong to Shabbat. We belong to Olam Haba, the soul, and the Lord. Let's look even deeper. If the purpose of the creation of man was just for this world, God would not have to put us a soul that is greater than even the angel themselves. The soul has this thirst for something more, this thirst for life, this thirst for eternity, for greatness. That's why, by the way, there's such a powerful desire to have children, because that's our way to hold on to eternity, because we live forever through our children, right? So tshuva is to see that the body is temporary and the neshama, the soul, is eternal, right? And basically, so God, like we said, He could have just given us a soul like an animal, and it would be fine. Like a lot of people, unfortunately, look at human beings as a developed, a higher level animal. And we say no, we're a completely different thing. We have a soul, and how are we similar to angels? We are an angel, but we're the opposite of an angel, because an angel was sent from above, right? Is sent from above to below. And our souls are here below, and they're trying to get back to above. We want to go there. We want to be connected to there. And God gave us the way to do it through the Torah and mitzvahs and developing ourselves. And you cannot constrict your soul to this world. That's it. It's too much for the soul, right? Sadness comes when your soul is feeling like, trapped. When your soul is feeling like I'm being like choked. When there's not enough spiritual satisfaction, right? We have this great soul that is, it's way bigger than the dimensions of this world, the soul. So don't make yourself small. You belong to these vast, merchavim adirim, these vast, merchavim? Okay, space. That's where we belong. And the wide space, and there will be a day where you will come, where you will reach the ocean. You will reach the ocean. Unfortunately, many people, they want to go travel around the world. It comes from a lack of traveling into your inner world, traveling into the world of the Torah, into the depth of the spiritual depth. And unfortunately, we look to find something out there. You're not going to find it out there. You're going to find it in here, like it says in the it says in the Pirkei Avot. He said, right, lechu tzeu, and tell me ezi derech shivo adam. Go find me. What's the way that a person should go? Go out and find. He didn't mean go out into the nature, into the world. He meant go out into the Torah. Go out into yourself, into your understanding, into your learning. And our souls are calling out to us all the time. Don't contract yourself. Expand. Open up to that greatness. Right? And we said we are greater, our souls are greater than the angels themselves. Right? There's a very big difference between this world and the next world. And it expresses it by we're on the earth, we're in the desert. And you can't always see the eternal. But there's hints. Like we said, the hint, your soul is calling out. And here's the beauty. We said, because our souls are greater than the angels, our souls get no pleasure from all the physical pleasures of this world. And this is a story, so we learned this from Shlomo HaMelech, from Kohelet. Your soul will never be satisfied. We said, you go travel around the world, go get the greatest cars, go do all these things. You will never be satisfied. Why? Because it is like a pauper that married a princess. A pauper that married a princess, she comes from royalty. She comes from the kingdom. And a pauper, he says, oh, the poor person, I found a little piece of meat, let's make it. And he's so excited. Wow, look at this little piece of meat. It's nothing to this princess. When she was in the in the castle. They would bring her, the greatest chefs would bring her 50 different kinds of meat from all over the world, right? So, like, how could that excite you, a little piece of meat? What are we trying to say? It's worthless because the soul comes from a place that the physical pleasures that are, like we said, a person that is indulging in the physical pleasures, not in context of how I can use this to serve God, it becomes something that is disgusted. That's what he says. The soul is disgusted by it. And it's very interesting. There's a word that it says in the parsha where it says, Al tifnu el ha'elilim. Do not, what does that mean, tifnu? Do not turn to the idols. That means don't put all your focus into that experience by detaching it from the whole big picture. That's how we make brachas before we eat. And we make brachas after we eat. Right? Because here I am, I'm indulging, I'm eating food. It could bring me down. Am I going to remember all the big concepts? That's why you make when you bench. Hazanat olam kulo. God gives food to the world. Uvnei Yerushalayim, build Jerusalem. These are all our biggest dreams, our biggest hopes. This is when we have our small state and we have our big state. We're alive, we're on fire. And they know why, unfortunately, people that go to pornography and things like that. Why is that? It's because a person is feeling small. And the greatest way of feeling big is to you're creating a child. You're bringing life to the world. And a person wants to feel big again. So there's two ways to get there. The negative way, the positive way. You get married, you have children. You love your wife. That's positive. Or you go to the pornography and you have this imaginary, negative, false experience of creating. You feel connected, you feel big, but it's a lie. It's wrong. It's like a person wants to have muscles. You can take steroids and you have huge muscles, or you can work out for 2 years and get the same muscles, but it came from you deserved it. You worked for it. And when the soul sees a person indulging just for the sake of indulging, detached from the service of God, detached from using it in order to serve God or to fulfill your mission or to be a good person, then the soul hates it. Imken, but therefore, obviously, so God would not create a world that the soul will be suffering. If that's the case, God would not create a world like this. God wouldn't create put the soul in prison. We mentioned in the past classes. But Pinchas ben Yair, he would go and take out the prisoners who were captive. That this Breita, the book is based on the Breita of Pinchas ben Yair. I will take you out of your selfishness. I will take you out of your prison of your selfishness. How? When you understand when you understand that my purpose is to be connected to the soul, be connected to the Olam, be connected to becoming a good person, and then I understand and I have a soul in me, and I'm aware that I have a soul in me, which is a code word for Olam Haba, or for my higher self, or for my big self, like we said, when you're in your state of greatness, of feeling connected. Kila ra'ui lavod, and you get the reward. Velo yedavar nimas, then your soul doesn't suffer, and doesn't hate being in this world. Ela adraba, it loves being in this world. Ela adraba nehav v'nechmad mimena, and it's pleasant, and it's joyous, and it's happy. And again, these concepts seem so simple. These are the deepest ideas in the world that the Ramchal is giving us. And this is simple. Zeh pashut. Obviously, that's the situation. So now that we understood that, right? Like we said, you can't just jump into you want to take your boat ride. You don't just jump into the water. You have to learn. You have to practice. You have to do, right? A soldier doesn't go into battle. He first does al yavesh. We say in the army. You go and you train and you simulate. You do simulations and you do all these things, and that is the whole purpose of davening and learning Torah, and that puts you into the mindset of Olam Haba. Of developing your character. becoming good, becoming a desire to pray. And it takes work, it's moral work. And these are the godly, training that God gives us to not go against our soul. Now that you understood everything we said till now, Navin, miyad, chomer mitzvot. Now I understand the depth and the importance and the seriousness of the mitzvot, because these are the tools that bring us to our completion, the shlemut amiti. And without them, you can't do it. There's no way to reach completion, personal growth, development. There's no way to get there without the mitzvot. You think that you can discover a new way, it won't work. Ki en atachid megia, you will not reach the goal. Elam kibutz kol ha'emtzaim asher nimtzu v'asher shimshu lagio, and you need to use the tools that God gave you and the gifts that God gave you, and this to reach. And if you take advantage of every opportunity and you unite everything, like we said, Yaakov Avinu, that he united all the stones and made them all one, then you will have the Olam Haba, and then you understand why the importance. Right? We said Ela mitzvot otam hadam v'chai bahem. There's an order and how the mitzvahs take place. The job of the mitzvahs is to allow your teva chaim to express your true nature of your own, who you are, to express itself. That's what the mitzvahs are. And they will not happen if you don't do it in a certain way. Right? The neshama wants to live the spiritual life, as we said, and it's revealed when you create the environment for it. And that's the mitzvot. And the mitzvot are the details of every mitzvah is important. The mitzvot are not just something that you can do like out of respect. Right? If I salute to a commander like this or like that or like this, it doesn't really make a difference because it's a matter of respect. That's not what the mitzvot are. The mitzvot are the exact tools, the exact strings that connect us to Olam Haba, that connect us to doing the will of God, and therefore how they're done and the details of how they're done are very, very important. Right? Therefore, it's hadikduk shel inyan mitzvot v'avodah. It's like you're dealing with a nuclear plant. You're dealing with nuclear. It's a mitzvah is. Rav Kook said, in every mitzvah, there is billions of idealism in each mitzvah. It's like a nuclear. How do you say a nuclear cell?
Core.
A nuclear cell. It's very, very precise and condensed, and it has effects on the whole entire world and on all of creation. It's not just a matter of a respectful thing, like out of respect I do these things to show my respects. No, it's part of the world being created, part of building the world, and therefore, and there's an order, and it has to be done in a certain time. You can't pray mincha after shkia, and you can't, or if you're Sephardi, you have 13 and a half minutes, but that's it. You can't you can't shake lulav if it's not sukkis, and there's all kinds of. It's a science, and the same way there's a science, you can't. How do you say make you can't zalzel bapratim? How do you say you can't
smudge the details?
Yes, you can't smudge the details. The same thing mitzvahs. You have to understand the same way the physical world. There's fire and there's laws of science. There's laws of the spiritual world, and you have to be very, very precise. Again, in the next chapters, he'll explain how to different ways of understanding these ideas and motivation. But it's very, very simple, right? It's very, very serious. It's like you have to be so, so careful, like a scientist in a lab dealing with nuclear chemicals. You're playing with fire, right? Esh dat lamo, a religion of fire God gave us. And it's so that's basically the idea we say here, and therefore you have to weigh it. Like you said, you have to weigh it and be very precise. The way same way a person who loves his money and he's weighing when you have a diamond and you do weigh it, you're talking about milligrams, because it costs 10,000, and if it's 1 milligram more, it's 15,000. And these are like, what's the big deal? No. It's
a big deal.
It's a very big deal, right? Every little small amount makes a huge difference, and therefore, the paying attention to the details is very, very important. Okay, because from this comes, it's like we don't feel it, but if I'm holding this stick and I make a small movement, as the stick goes up, the movements are so much bigger. So if I make a small movement with my hand here, and imagine a stick going up, when it goes way up, it's already like, whoa, from one side of the world to the other. So our effects have these ramifications on the upper world, and we are very important creations. We have to be aware of that. Like we said, our souls are greater than the angels, souls of the angels, because we have a challenge. We have freedom of choice. And therefore we have the potential to reach very, very high, more than the angel that doesn't have a challenge. There's the animal. All he is body. There's a soul. All he is soul. And then there's a human being. That's a body and a soul that's intertwined, and that creates freedom of choice. And the soul has to lead the body. The soul has to be like we said, it's more important. It's the leader. It's the boss. And of course, you have to give to your body, and you have to guide your body in the right directions. But you have to take control. Nimtzenu lemedim. Okay. Again, let's summarize the whole chapter. Nimtzenu lemedim. Yes. You had a question?
No, I had no.
Okay. What did we learn? Ikar Metziut Adam Olam Hazeh. You are in this world for 3 reasons. 1, Lekayam mitzvot. 2, La'avod et Hashem. 3, La'amod b'nisyanot. God says, I put you in this world. Ramchal says, let's sum it up. God put you in this world for 3 reasons. Number 1 is to do mitzvot. That's easy. Number 2 is to la'avod et Hashem. What is la'avod et Hashem? Is to do mitzvot when it's hard. Wear tzitzit when it's hot out. And then there's la'amod b'nisyanot. The third thing that God put us in this world is God gives us challenges. The challenges are there to bring out our strength. The challenges are there for us to overcome them. But that's the hardest. The easiest is mitzvot. La'avod Hashem is harder. And withstand the challenges is the hardest. But that's the reason why we're in this world. So when the challenge comes, you say, I just landed in New York a few weeks ago. I landed in New York. I was on a flight at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got in New York at 8 o'clock in the morning, and my phone wasn't working. And I had 5 hours with no phone, and I didn't know